I forgot to record one of our meetings one time. Um, we're going to put, or Kenji's going to put a link in the chat that will go to our Dropbox, and you can download everything we're going to talk about. And I'll make this announcement too when more people come in. But all we ask is that you do not share, unless like Jared, you can share with Adrian, that kind of thing, because he's a member. But just download, print out if you have time, use look on your computer, that kind of thing. We're going, there he goes. Look at that. Kenji's listening.
Yeah, I'm listening.
And so we'll talk about our waivers. We both have modifications in. No, they're not modifications. What are they, Kenji?
Amendments.
Amendments.
Yep.
To try and get some things changed in our current waivers. But we want you guys to get first crack, because all of us know that once this hits public, I think the waiver office is going to be inundated.
Yeah.
With applications.
That's the biggest thing, is we want to make sure that you're first in line for these things. And that's why we did it, because as a benefit to be as being members, you get to do this.
There you go.
Exactly. And then second crack will go to Pilot Institute. So there should be a bunch coming through there. So want to get you ahead of that crew too. We love them very much, but you're our members.
Yeah, so. and we want to thank you guys for being members of ours for so long, that the support you guys give us without really a tangible, I put a sticker on one of my water bottles, so we have a DSPA water bottle here, but we don't do that for people. So many times when you join a group that, I want swag. Well, we don't have swag, we have stickers, and even that we don't send out because we just made them real quick for conference, to be quite honest. And so this is going to be a huge thank you, hopefully, for y'all, from us to you.
Yeah.
For everything you guys done for us.
The other thing too is you can look at our ConOps or concept of operations and our waiver as a starting point too. Because if you have more advanced operation that sort of fit within the parameters, or what's called shielded operations, which is the operations below like obstructions and such, you might be able to come up with a ConOps that fits more your operations a little bit more than say what we did. So just think of this as a starting off point, and you can get as advanced as you want. And if you're more than welcome to reach out to us, say, hey, we have this use case. How could we leverage your waiver or your waiver application to do this? Mm-hmm. So don't be afraid to just say, hey, we need a little bit of help. Can you help us out? When you do your application, even if it's a little bit different than what we have.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good point moving forward, is that we're going to be a lot more accessible to y'all as we do this. Yep. And as we get these waivers done, we want to be able to just really be as accessible as we can for you guys.
Yeah. So the way we're going to do things today is we'll go over the waiver itself, and Vic, you will present it on the on Zoom, so we can just go through it with you all in case you haven't already. And then after that, what we'll do is we'll take a look at Vic's application itself, just go through that, and then what we'll do is we'll go through my application as well, and then follow up with how to do DROTAMs or drone NOTAMs, which is a requirement of the waiver, and then follow up with any questions. If at any time folks have questions, don't hesitate to just raise your hand or just chime in and say, hey, got a question. So that'll be the order. So now, Vic, if you could just pop up your waiver is good enough.
Okay. Let me share
and then
screen.
we can start going through it sort of line by line.
Sure
and
thing.
I'll have you start that out.
Okay. So, and I have to ask, can everybody see my screen, because I don't know what I'm looking at. Oh, it says participants can see your screen. Cool. So here's my waiver. Now, as you know, whenever you have a waiver, I know, John, you've got a few of these as well. Not BVLOS yet that I know of, but you've got your OOP waiver, which congratulations, by the way. Your application is part of the waiver. So if you're going to carry your waiver with you in printout form, and I'm old fashioned, so I carry everything in printout form. I think my my policy and procedure manual is up to like 40 pages now. So you have to carry out the application with it. And any discrepancy between the waiver and the application, the waiver takes precedent. So we've got a bunch of special provisions. Some are kind of the normal ones. We've got actually 34 special provisions and inclusions. And it's good till 2026, which when I saw that gave me hope that, you know what, we're just going to give you a 4-year waiver. And by the time it's done, we won't need them anymore. So our goal, Kenji and my goal is to get these particular waivers, these, I guess we could call them shielded ops
Yep.
waivers, to go the same way as 10729 waivers went with new legislation.
Which
And we also, go ahead.
which by the way, for folks who don't know, the FAA is starting rulemaking. The unified agenda came out for rulemaking just earlier last week, I think, or this
Oh, I
past
haven't even
week.
seen that.
Yeah, but it's wrong. The way the process is going to work, originally it was rules were going to be done piecemeal, but they're just going to do it all at once. So looking at that end date, it makes sense because that's about how long that rulemaking is going to take. So we'll probably see this, what you see in here as sort of the final rule or part of it.
Yay. And our amendments hopefully will change some of that, because some of the regulations are kind of stupid.
It's like, really?
Mr. Bubbler knows all about the stupidity behind waivers and the FAA thinking.
Yeah.
So the normal stuff, this stuff here is just, the common, they even call it common special provisions, which is an interesting title. Can't be combined, they can cancel, deny at any time, must be with you while you're flying, stuff like that. This does not say that it has to be paper copy, but if I'm flying, I want a paper copy, because if somebody shows up and wants to see it, I don't want to have to go through all the hassle of finding it on whatever I'm using and stuff like that. So that's why I have a paper PNP. Responsible person must be listed. We also supposed to keep a list of current drones. My particular waiver is only for the Avata and the DJI FPV. So I have to keep a list of those.
And there's a reason for that too.
Right. Direct participants and manipulating controls, VOs, which is funny because mine specifically is a non-VO waiver. That's kind of the whole point of the waiver. I have to be, this is all the standard stuff. And so here's the BVLOS special ops. Operations may not be conducted at night. I do not have a problem with this, because me personally, if I'm on a commercial shoot, which is what I'd be doing at night, I would have a VO with me anyway. I did not try and get that changed in my amendment. Also, the detect and avoid, which is interesting. They're not saying see and avoid. So DAA, detect and avoid, which makes sense since it's BVLOS. It has to be, I guess, basically you have to use not the aeroscope. What's the DJI one? AirSense?
AirSense.
Yeah, AirSense on mine. And geofencing must be used. It does, and that basically means I have to set a limit of 1,000 feet. I can't fly further than 1,000 feet from my location, which is fine. Again, this is for FPV. And so I'm not going to be flying 2,500 feet away. 1,000 feet for me makes perfect sense for what I want to do. And so I'm not too worried about that. 12 is not, I actually asked for modification on this one. 50 feet AGL, where I'm going to be flying, it should be 100 feet AGL above the objects, or 400 feet total even, because where I'm going to be flying and out in the middle of nowhere, there's not going to be a plane there. There's not going to be a helicopter there. It has to be all I'll get to that, but it can't be in non-congested areas. So it makes no sense to be restricted to 50 feet AGL. And I put that in my amendment. And I'm allowed 400 feet total. So that's fine. I'm not going to be flying 400 feet over something for this particular thing. This could make sense. This particular part here could make sense for some waivers in that some people may use these to dive things, dive a crane, dive something like that out in the middle of nowhere. So I guess that makes sense. This right here does not make any sense whatsoever to me because it does not define airport. So in my amendment, I asked for just to say uncontrolled airspace. And I have all uncontrolled airspace, by the way. And in my application, all I asked for was a small little park. So they were very generous in that. There we go. Sparsely populated. That's the that's the word I was trying to come up with earlier. And sparsely populated is not defined by the FAA. They have their little yellow thing, little yellow markings on the sectionals, and that's congested area supposedly, but it's not really defined as to what that is. So you can use that to your advantage. My house, I have designated as sparsely populated, so I can fly around my yard. And I actually have a NOTAM for my house, a year-long NOTAM.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Vic, do you have a fence
Yeah.
around your property?
I do. I don't have my back property. I do. My front property, I do not.
Okay. Because if you look at it, it has to be safeguarded too.
True. True. I do take advantage of some of it. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I can see to make sure no one's around as well. I can see as I'm flying around, I can see that nobody's in my yard. So I'm not too worried about that. But it is not safeguarded. Exactly. Again, here we get, you have to follow procedures in the outline in the application. And here's where it says of a discrepancy between the waiver and the application, the waiver takes precedent. So in this particular case, when I was asking for the park, they gave me all of non-congested G, actually non-congested outside 5 nautical miles of an airport. So that was very generous of them in that. This they already talked about. They already talked about that, you have to be able to see the waiver, have the waiver. I am not going to allow anybody else to fly into this waiver. That's just a personal decision of mine, but I have the option to let other people fly under it. It's not something I plan on doing. Here is some interesting stuff. Again, all direct participants, it's just me. So this is a very general ConOps type thing. I don't care about where they're going to be because I'm the only one there. CRM is not going to be an issue for me. Planned flight area is my NOTAM anyway. My designated launch and recovery. I have to verify geofence again. No big deal. I set it. I think the Avata I can set to like 980 something feet. It's weird. They have presets. I do have emergency landing sites. Of course, I'm going to avoid all aircraft. I can't be more than 50 feet above anything and 400 above. Avoiding aircraft is the least of the issues here. I must make sure everything's safe, no problem. If UA control loss is, waiver must cease at any of these particular things. A UA control loss is linked. Well, it's going to go into RTH anyway, so that's not an issue. This here, I asked for a modification on because the area I've got that is big enough, or that is a pretty large area for the park I've got designated in my NOTAM. If somebody walks in one side of the park, I can easily fly in the other side of the park. So I've asked for modification that if a person enters a flight area, I have to redesign the flight area so I can not fly over them. So we'll see if that happens. And notification for all this stuff as well. What am I gonna do for hire? Really, honestly, on something like this, it's not going to be for commercial work. It's just going to be for practice.
No, you can use it for compensation or hire. You just can't carry the property.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Carry property for compensation. I should read that whole sentence there. What am I going to carry on a Nevada or an FPV drone? So that's an interesting provision. And here's where I'm trying real hard to get this one removed because it's stupid. It's just absolutely ridiculous. A NOTAM is there so the airport knows what's going on and other pilots know what's going on, but mainly it's there for the airport. If I can't be within 5 miles of an airport, I'm only flying 50 feet AGL or 50 feet above. Aircraft don't need to know I'm there. So my concern here is, and I illustrated it a little bit, is I just going to apply for year-long waivers or the year-long NOTAMs all over the place. And it's a total pain in the butt. The NOTAM, NOTAM page, which we'll talk about, is a total pain in the butt to use. I think they do it on purpose so they have to call, and then that way the weather X brief can justify their budgets. So here, this is the make and model only, obviously. So the Avata and the FPV. If I decide to start using something else, I will have to ask for modification. And I'm okay with that for now. It doesn't have to be the model numbers that are associated with the waiver application. I can just keep a list of things. Manufacturer recommendations, limitations, not a problem there. The only issue would be for me, there's a suggested temperature range that the aircraft can operate in. Here in Colorado, that is lower quite often. So I may, I'm not sure I want to be out practicing and playing anyway with an FPV at 32 degrees, but I can't under this, which is fine. The hotter stuff may be an issue at some point, but probably not. So we have to really have to pay attention to that. If you're in a cold climb or a really hot climb, you have to make sure that you're not operating outside the recommendations for whatever particular drone that you have. Again, this is just a log containing maintenance information, things like that. That's fairly standard for something like that. It's interesting that I have to sign off on my own work, but okay, whatever. Sure, why not? The only issue there would be if I crash or something happens, I send it back to DJI. They're not going to be able to sign off on the work. So I've got to figure that part out. I haven't done that yet. Keep a log of each flight. You have to make sure that if you do something, you have to test it out without the goggles on. It says right here. This one is stupid as well, and I'm trying to get that modified. Why would I need to increase the conspicuity? It's a fun word of the drone to a mile, statute mile. I don't need it. And honestly, in my testing, there's not really a strobe out there that works at a mile out during the day. That can functionally be carried on either the Avata or the DJI. So I did some testing on that, and it just doesn't work. I tried to test the Arc 5s, the Firehouse Arc 5s out, and I can't see them past about 2,000 feet, even if they're pointed right directly at me. So I don't know anything to do with that. I do have, as per Kenji's suggestion, not on my drones yet, on the FPV drones yet, but on my other stuff, I do have Prism tape on it, and that works fairly well. Not a mile though, it really doesn't. Ground control station, this is basically what it must display is basically just all the DJI stuff anyway, so that's no big deal. Audible or visual cues if something's going wrong. They do that anyway. Pre-designed, again, no big deal. I set my pre-designation, and I keep an eye on anybody who might be flying or walking near me. I set it in a place where it's open and so I can hear people coming. Not a problem at all. Control links are used. That's all standard anyway for any pre-flight. I make sure everything's working right. I'm not going to have a predetermined route. I'm just within the flight stand. Depending on where I'm at, is going to depend on when the RTF kicks in. So not RTF, return to home, RTH kicks in. So it's kind of hard to determine a predetermined route. Predetermined method, absolutely, but route, no. I think as long as it's within the flight area, within the NOTAM, I think that would be fine. ADSB not allowed, no problem. And then the FCC regulations, again, not a problem. And then the standard here. All right, who's making margaritas in the background here? Yeah, I hear something going on. And then there's this as well. So you can't fly under the waiver if you can't meet the requirements of the waiver. That's kind of a standard thing as well. So are there any questions yet so far as to what, we've had a few other people pop in. So hold your questions for just a second. If you'll notice, those of you who just popped in, when I started this, if you go to the chat, there's a link. Can't open the chat. There it is. Yeah, John, 24 hours, which is stupid. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. That Dropbox link is where you're going to download our waivers, our applications, our letters, and then the modifications requested from Kenji and myself. So you can use those. And again, and as I mentioned before, please do not share those outside the group, because we want everybody in the group to get our membership to get first crack at this before the waiver applications are
Can
hammered.
everybody see the Dropbox link who joined late, because some chat functions you don't get to see the entire chat, and ignore that top
Yeah.
URL.
I thought about that later. It's like, should have cleared that out. No big deal on that one though.
Yep.
So questions on my waiver, and Kenji, they basically copy and pasted Kenji's ConOps onto my waiver, which was really funny when
Close.
I said that. Close.
They were really generous.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is this is going to be the standard language that you'll see pretty much on everything. I think they're working towards standardization of a lot of this. So yeah, just expect something similar, unless you have some certain provisions that might be a little bit different.
Yeah. These that you don't copy and paste if you think there's something that works better for you, but do copy and paste if you think these will work for you. And a quick side note, real quick before we move on, is I am on the task group, the BVLOS task group for the AAAC, along with Dave Messina. He and I are co-leading subgroup 1. Which basically is doing things like giving suggestions to the waiver office now that this ConOps is public, to, hey, you know what, let's standardize these type of waiver applications so they can just be hammered through the waiver office, similar to how our 10729 waivers were taking less than a week towards the end. So that's our plan there with that kind of stuff, especially with the we get the task group in, and that'll be presented at the next AAAC meeting in March.
Did Carbon actually did he finally give in and say, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
David and I gave him enough reasons to say yes. So
Hey,
Dave's not
I
here,
got
is it? I'm sorry, who?
I got a quick question for you.
Go for it, Jason.
On the waiver, you were talking about your specific type of waiver and what your purpose is for. What is your purpose for the waiver, to kind of help us understand?
Oh, sure. No, that's an awesome question. I should have started with that, because y'all are probably wondering why I applied for this waiver. I want to get better at FPV. That was my plan. And for me to fly FPV without this particular waiver, I had to dig somebody up to be my VO. And it's not that hard in Denver to find people who just want to get together and fly. But if I'm flying, they can't, because obviously you can't fly and be a VO at the same time, or I have to pay them. And my argument was, look, I don't need this for this. And I can use this to get better and safer when I do have a VO with me. So that was my main goal, is I just wanted to fly down at this park a couple miles from my house. It's a great ravine type park, so it's perfectly safe. Not many people. And that was my plan when I did this. It took me 3 tries to get an approved waiver, just to do that.
So from my perspective, mine was, having been on the BVLOS arc, is to really push the envelope in terms of trying to get some of the recommendations that came out of that in terms of sheltered operations, and get a waiver for it, so the FAA could use some of the waivers and flights that happen as justification for the final rule when it comes out. So it's a little bit complicated on that side, but so the idea, the operations was not just for FPV for me, which I enjoy like all the time, but if you start thinking about some of the use cases for sheltered operations, so think of inspections where you're flying BVLOS, you're checking stuff out. I want to get it to the point where the RPIC doesn't even have to be on site, which would be true BVLOS. There'd be an operator operating from somebody else. And this is a stepping stone to get to that. So for example, you have a drone or drone in the box. You've seen some of those starting to come out. This will eventually enable that type of operation. It's a stepping stone to get there.
Yep. FAA's philosophy on changing things is crawl, walk, run. And so this is the crawl. This is the learning to crawl, walk, go back to crawl for a little while, and then run.
Kneecap, crawl.
And yeah, Kenji and I worked these together at the beginning, and our main goal, other than just getting to fly, was let's get this out there and let's get this let's get this, let's just move this, let's do our small little bitty
2
part of
steps
moving this
backwards
industry
first, yeah.
forwards.
John, that's awesome. Yeah.
What?
pretty
What do you say?
John's like 2 steps backwards first. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. John has been sharing things with me about his OOP thing. I won't get into it, but he's having issues with the FAA on that.
So to keep things moving,
Yes.
shall we move to your application?
Sure. My application was kind of funny. Let me pull it up. Let's see. Do I have my application here? There's my letter. Let me pull it up back this way. I was not ready for that. Sorry. And again, it's the application itself is kind of the important part, but what I'm going to show you, not all of it's applicable because as I mentioned, I want to fly. This was my title is I want to fly at Hutchinson Park, which is this little bitty park up the road from me. Gosh, I haven't heard my application in so long. I'm sorry. Take a look at what you've downloaded, hopefully by now. But just going through it real quick is the ability to determine the position, altitude, attitude, and movement is all right there in the goggles. You know all this stuff. Either via the map or via the feed. And so I was trying to get them to understand that we don't have to have, in situations like this, we don't have to have absolute visual ability. But we can take the goggles off real quickly and then see the drone. So that was a big part of my application. And then of course, you know, our drone's not quiet. So our audible cues were really put in the application a couple, 3 different times. Here I actually did do testing. And here, when I did my testing, it was less than 3 seconds for me to find the drone after I didn't obviously lose telemetry. I just took the drone off, but I could tell from hearing about where the drone was. I could tell from looking at the map on the goggles about where the drone was. So as long as I wasn't behind a tree or something, in which case I just, left stick up, boom, go straight up. And you can find the drone very quickly. Again, you're not that far away and you hear where it is and you can see where it is based on the map on your goggles. I went through all the questions on the if you go to the drone zone, when you go to apply for waivers, they actually can send you to what questions you need to answer in order to satisfy your safety mitigations. So I literally printed out or copied the question so they wouldn't have to do it. And this was a trick I did with a lot of the 2.9 waivers I wrote. Here's the question. Here's my answer. Here's the question. Here's my answer. So every time I write down the question, I would sit down and I would write the answer to it on what I thought was a reasonable safety mitigation. And as you do this, you write it out on something like, Microsoft Word, Mac Pages, something like that. And you write it, edit it, read it again, write it, edit, read it again. And then you copy and paste into your application once you actually start filling out the application. Here, this was one of the questions I thought was really stupid. How to avoid other aircraft. It's like if there is an aircraft at the area I was trying to fly at, or 50 feet or to 100 feet or whatever, I asked for 100, they give me 50. My drone is going to be the least of their problems. So I tried to figure out a nice way to figure that or to say that. And then also, again, using audible cues. One of the awesome things about living in Colorado is the only thing really is going to be that low are helicopters. And in Colorado, they have to use heavy lift props. And so we can actually feel them sometimes before we can see them. We hear them, feel them, and then see them. We can start feeling those propellers beating the air in our chests. So it's too easy not to hear. And if you're only flying 1,000 feet out anyway in this particular waiver, how can you not hear an aircraft coming in? So if I hear it, I'll put the drone at safe altitude, move goggles, locate the incursion, evaluate, and then go from there. Adding something like this to where you won't do anything until the threat has been eliminated is always helpful. Always helpful. Other aircraft, visual and audible cues. Again, you don't have visual cues, so you're going to have to really rely on your hearing. In my particular case, if you're doing this for a non-FPV, which is a little outside of this stuff, then you can also start using the visual cues as well. Yield right of way, again, it's all the same thing. Just get down, get low. Flying over persons, I can see around me. I can see where I'm flying. I'm not going to be flying backwards, that kind of stuff. Inspecting area before launch. If I have any questions at all, I will bring my Mavic with me and fly around, see if anybody's around. In my particular area, not this time of year, but there may be people camping in the ravine. The unhoused, as they say on the news, might be camping in the ravine. So I have to make sure they're not there before I fly. And it's a very, very, very open area. So that's helpful too. And I think what they did is since I was asking for a particular place, they then put the the less populated areas. They asked for 3 statute mile conspicuity, and I just told them I didn't need it, and they made that 1 mile, which I'm trying to change. Well, no, it won't be visible. Why would it be? How would it be? The degradation questions. You've got your visual cues, you've got your audible cues, and then you've got your telemetry. So you can use all of those to figure out if something's going wrong with your drone. This stuff is, again, it's kind of the technical stuff that you can get into. I've put down thousands of hours over the last 8 years flying to ensure I have relevant knowledge. You could put your own stuff in there. Let's see, no GPS. I'm not going to fly these particular ones without GPS. It's just what I wanted to do. One, I'm not that good at the pilot without GPS yet, which is the whole point of trying to learn how to fly. Let's see what else is in here. A lot of it is technical aspects of it, which I just went on the DJI website, and if you don't put this silliness in, this was one of the reasons I think I was denied the first 2 times, because I thought it was stupid and didn't need it. But I was denied. So it's like, okay, I'll play your game. And that's really what you have to do, is play your game. You have to play their game. And I think that's pretty much it for my particular application. So a lot of it is common sense, which is becoming more and more accepted by the FAA waiver office. For the longest time, they didn't know what common sense was, because there aren't that many drone people in the waiver office. That's getting better now. And so any questions about this particular aspect of it? Or Kenji, do you have any comments?
No comments from me right now.
Right now, you're holding them all.
Oh no.
I know,
No,
just
no,
kidding.
no, no, no.
And again, I asked for till 2026. They gave it to me. So I was
Yeah.
really happy about that.
Yeah.
And these are the technical aspects of the park. Didn't need it. They did not give me 400 feet. Well, they did as a max. So
yeah,
I wanted 400 feet, and that still gives you that 100-foot separation for some idiot flying down the ravine at 500 feet, which would be illegal because there's houses there. They'd have to be at 1,000 feet. So any questions? You guys are really quiet. Are your microphones working?
They're listening intently.
They're listening intently, or they've all fallen asleep at the sound of my
soaking
voice.
it all in.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
There's a lot to soak in.
There's a lot to soak in, and I should mention also, I don't think I did at the beginning, that this is going to be listed on our unlisted, but it will be published on our YouTube channel. So we'll send that link out once we have it done up, and that way people who can't watch this have access to it. And then if you have like, but what did he say when blah blah blah, you can go ahead and go back to that. And of course, our email addresses are pretty darn easy, Vic or Kenji at dspalliance.org. And you can reach out to us that way as well if any questions coming up.
Cool. All right. So let's see if I can share. Okay. You need to give me host.
Okay.
Hopefully that won't kill off
3
screen recording.
buttons. Make host. You're the host with the most. Go for it.
Okay, I am host now. Okay, share screen. Let's see, Microsoft Word. Share. All right, here we go. There we go. So mine's pretty similar. Mine was my application I made a little bit more restrictive, just because I knew that the FAA was a little bit more conservative, so to speak, in what their thinking was. But what was really nice is the FAA came out and said, okay, we're going to give you more than you asked for, which was really, really nice. So for mine, it was really an amendment to my previously existing BVLOS waiver, which was the flying completely under trees. And they granted that, but I was like, wait a second, let's try something a little bit different. Let's do something out in the open. So the way I said, let's go ahead and say, give me 200 by 200. Because if I'm sitting in the center, I'll be a maximum of 100 feet away from the center of from any of the trees or obstructions that are around. And as you noted, as we can see in the waiver itself, they ended up saying, okay, you actually have 200 feet away from obstructions. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. What I also referenced was the ARC report. And this is always good practice. If there's any third-party data that you can reference in your waiver application, it's really, really useful, because the FAA can go in and say, hey, look, there's some justification, real world analysis that we can rely on. So if anything happens, we can say, okay, there was data that backed up the request. And as you notice there, so it says the 100 feet. And then I also requested and said that we will remain below the level of obstructions or trees, and will never exceed 400 feet AGL. And that's exactly what ended up in the waiver award itself. And the reason why I said that is I hear a lot from a lot of helicopter folks, oh, we love to fly right above the trees. And when we spoke with the folks at the waiver office, they're like, how are you going to deal with the helicopters that are flying really low? So we said, okay, we just won't fly above the level of the obstruction. So that's why I put that in there. I said, I'll measure the dimensions of the clearing using a measuring tape. That wasn't a requirement that ended up in the waiver. So that was just being me being conservative again, just to say, hey, we'll take these steps. Since it's not in the waiver, I'm not gonna measure that. Also, what was interesting is I added in a piece about installing a separate flight termination system or device that would operate on a different frequency from C2 link. And the reason that I had actually put that in there is because that was a requirement for my over 55-pound exemption as well. So that increases the safety of any flights that happens if there's a malfunction or there's interference from 2.4 gigahertz or on the control links, that it doesn't interfere with the flight termination system. What's nice is in the waiver, that's not a requirement. So they don't require that to be installed, which was nice. And I think this is the piece about the high visibility tape and or strobe. That's probably my fault, Vic, that they ended up requiring that, because one of the questions was, how are you going to increase visibility? So I said, I'll just put tape and a strobe on. So that was ended up being a requirement. The other piece too was the additional training to be able to identify approaching aircraft orally, which means hearing it. And the consideration was if helicopters in the area, as Vic mentioned, to cease operations if you hear it. And I also use the FAA handbook, which says helicopters, if they're going to land, have to fly around first the landing areas just to check it out, and we'd hear it at that point. The AirSense piece was that part of the application that's highlighted, ADS-BN to detect incoming aircraft. And then also just saying, hey, our PICs will be trained to recognize when they exceed the altitude of the obstructions. So you know when you pop up above, and you know that you're not supposed to do that. The other piece too, which was kind of fascinating, is when I put the original application in, I said I'd be operating from the middle of the field itself. And then they're like, wait a second, how are you going to prevent people, helicopters from landing in the field? And we had this discussion, if you remember, Vic. I said, I'm going to be sitting in the middle of the field. If they're landing in the middle of the field with me standing there, that's a problem. So that was one of the mitigations that I put in there. But again, that's not a requirement that ended up being in the application itself. So that was the application text that I used. The FAA actually did give me a request for information, so I will share that right now, just to show you how the RFIs come in and some of the questions that they ask. So stand by.
While he's getting that, I will tell you on my first two, I did not get an RFI. I got a flat out denial. And even though my first two waivers were for FPV without a VO, both of them included one of the reasons for denial is I did not put in a way I can compensate for the communication delay between myself and a VO. So that frustrated me quite a bit. And I got no requests for more information for my third one, and it was approved. So that was a long way from where it started. When did you apply also, Kenji?
I think about the same time, right?
Well, you got your approval before I did. You're on your first one.
Did I?
Yeah, because you got your shielded one, and it was like 3 or 4 months before I got mine after that. And the difference between 3 or 4 months, because you got yours before before Expo, because you were the tree guy. And I got mine after, and the safety mitigations are almost a world apart because they're giving me so much more latitude than they gave you. So I think that's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And Mark asked me a question: did they acquire the ADS-B in the actual waiver? Yes. So that's part of the waiver itself, that you have ADS-B in, and hence the requirement to use DJI that has that AirSense built in, both in the DJI FPV and the Avata itself as well. So if you look at what they ask for, I had to actually answer them, but they asked it again. Describe how the responsible person and other parties involved would detect other aircraft to include non-cooperative aircraft, and provide a method of assurance that the manned aircraft would be avoided. Describe how the visual conspicuity of the SUA will be increased to at least 1 statute mile. Describe how to ensure all persons participating in the operation will have relevant knowledge. Give a specific location that meet your proposed operational limits. So that was a question that we talked about with the folks at from the waiver office. They just wanted an example of an area that I'd be operating in. So I did that. Provide a method and safety procedures to avoid flying over people or vehicles, and provide a full description of the aircraft and essential elements to include resolution of the FPV equipment used in its field of view. And the reason that they asked is because we had this long discussion with the team at the waiver office, is they wanted sort of a bounding box or additional requirements. So not everybody could just say, okay, I'm just going to do these things. They wanted a little bit more clarity in terms of what would be required. So that's why they asked these questions. We had these questions came out of our discussion with the FAA. And I'll show you what exactly my answers were. So RFI response. Here we go. Let's see, share screen. So here's what I included. It ended up not being part of the requirements that I saw, but I said, here's what the camera, the FPV camera will include for the DJI FPV, minimum field of view, and then a screen resolution so you can actually see what you're flying. You know, this sort of eliminated sort of analog from it. So this is the digital piece. Just a description of the drones that were used, under 5 pounds, including the weight of batteries. So they're really lightweight. And then just the battery size, 3,000 milliamp hours. And then all operations must occur in sparsely populated areas upon private property where there's access controls. And that's just a ground risk mitigation piece. So if we don't want randoms walking in or anything like that. Originally, I said I'd fly the area, the area with a drone, non-FPV drone, just to get a visual reference on the structures and how tall they are, where they are, etc. That's not included in the final the waiver award. This is the whole thing about operating from the middle of the area, just so if a helicopter decides to land, they won't land on me. But again, that's not required anymore, which was great. And then this section, the answer about how to make it more visible. I offered retroreflective 3M tape. That wasn't required. And then I included a strobe as well, if required per terms of the waiver. The other piece too is prior to flight, pre-flight briefing. If anybody else is flying with me, if there's multiple folks who are flying at the same time, just to give a briefing and educate people on how what the requirements of the waiver are and how to comply with the safety requirements as well. And then after that, sample operational area upon private property. I just gave the parameters of the sample area, and I just provided a map, and that was it. So that was the RFI, and then from the RFI, they ended up giving the waiver, and then they awarded Vic the waiver, and there's one other person who got a similar waiver as well in Washington. So that's the contents of our waiver applications, and I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. Now, one of his mitigations was the whole, if you're going to have somebody fly with you, you have to give them a test and all that garbage. And that's why that's why I'm not letting anybody else fly under my waiver, because I just don't want to go through that brain damage. I'll be more than happy to help them get their own waiver, like what we're doing for you guys. But no, I'm not letting anybody fly under my waiver. It was a pain in the butt with the 2.9 waivers, and that was a requirement then. And so I didn't want to do it with this one.
Okay. So Vic, we'll put out a question or a call for questions, and then we'll go into the NOTAMs piece.
Sure. So any questions coming up or if you guys kind of sitting there with this, like drinking from a fire hose kind of situation. Again, this will be posted and we'll send you guys links.
I got a clarification question.
Go
It
for it,
sounds,
Larry.
Vic, like your waiver is geographic location specific. It didn't seem that way with Kenji's. Is that
No, actually, it's
accurate?
the opposite. My application was definitely geocentric. I mean, it was like, I want to go fly at Hutchinson Park, boom. And the only restriction from my waiver was not 5 miles within an airport, remote, and then uncongested. So
Gotcha.
basically
That's
any
great.
G. I can go out
Yeah.
in the middle of the desert in Arizona or the mountains of Colorado and fly. If
We
I
got a lot
if
of
I do the
mountains.
NOTAM, which is the stupid part.
Both of them, I think what they wanted, the FAA wanted, was a sample location. So they didn't get, they wanted to make sure they weren't awarding a waiver just to award a waiver. So
Mhm, mhm.
yeah.
And that's why I put
Gotcha.
the park in my waiver application, because I would have been super happy if I was just allowed to fly there. And I was really happy when I read through that and found out I could fly anywhere almost.
Yep.
I may
All
have to
right.
switch how I feel about flying at my house though, because yeah, it is definitely not remote. I wish it was, but it's not. So I may have to cancel that NOTAM and not fly at my house. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. So NOTAMs.
NOTAMs suck. Oh, that was out loud. I'm sorry. So here is, okay. I got to share my screen, don't I? Instead of
Yes,
just
you
going
do.
straight there. Okay. Does that mean you have to give me back hosting recording? Am I host now?
Oh yeah, I do need to.
Oh, wait a minute. I can share screen. Yeah, they do suck. You're right, John. They do. Share screen. Nope. Let me be host. I get to be the host with the most.
Yeah, you
now.
can take back host.
I am hosted. Rehost. Is that what that's called? Rehosting. Okay. Can I have it now? Nope.
Hold on. Let me see if I can hit it.
Double click me.
Make host.
Big
Change
host.
host. There you go.
I am now the host. Okay, here we go. Now you guys get to see what goes on the screens on our recording. Okay, so share screen, Google Chrome, doink. Am I there? Yes, I am.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this is wxbrief.com, 1-800-wxbrief.com. You have to have an account. So you have to have an account to do this. And there's two ways that you can apply for a NOTAM. They're not called NOTAMs, they're called UAs, something along those lines. One is you call 1-800-WX-BRIEF and say, I need to file a NOTAM. You need to have your area set up, pre-planned. The first one I did, I needed to do the park, and so I couldn't just put down a circle and give them a radius. I actually had to define the park, and so they had to help me with that because I couldn't figure out how to do it. Their system is just goofy as all get out. And the other way you do it is you can go ahead and fill it out yourself. So you go up here to plans and briefs, and here it is right here, UAS NOTAM form. So you click on that and you fill this out. Now, one thing you've got to do before you do any of this is you have to upload your NOTAM, I'm sorry, your COA to flight service.
Your waiver.
Your waiver COA. Yeah, your waiver, sorry. Your COW to it. And I had to ask them how to do that. And they said, oh, send us an email with a PDF. It's like, you guys, I can't just upload it. It was silly. I talked with an FAA person and he swears that he thinks they've got this broken on purpose. So you have to call them and justify their jobs. Those were his words, not mine. And you've got a little movie thing right here. You can click on that and also watch a movie. So you've got OUAs, so U.S. operating areas with NOTAMs. They're just called UAOs. I've got no pending, but I do have one active, and that's this one right here, and that's my house. The one I did for the park does not show up since it was done verbally on the phone. It will show up if you look for NOTAMs assigned to that particular airport. The particular airport closest to me is KBKF. No, that's the KBJC, which is Broomfield, Jeffco. What do they call it? They change the name about every 2 years. I think it's Jefferson County Municipal now or regional or something. KBKF is actually Buckley Airfield, and I do not have a NOTAM out there. But so those will pop up, and I actually on this particular one is I printed it out with the map and everything, so you can view NOTAM here. But when you fill this out, you have to have your aircraft. I only did my Avata through this. You can put any of them in there, and it doesn't say you can't fly. I'm supposedly not supposed to go fly my FPV here, but I don't want to fill out a NOTAM for every single one of my drones. So that's one of the issues I pointed out when I did my modification. AGL or MSL, you're going to want AGL, obviously, because you're a drone. So surface to, in my particular case, 150 foot, because where I'm going to be flying, I'm not going to be going over that height. and it's going to be recurring flight. I asked for, this was Christmas Eve is when I filled this out. And I asked for it for, you can go up to 12 months. So the day Christmas Eve in 2023 is when it expires. I click all these days and I just hit sunrise to sunset because that's what my waiver says. I can only fly sunrise to sunset. This information is not necessary. And I just have my contact information in there. And that's you can do a center point. I just dropped a pen in the middle of my house and went ahead and put that in there. You really are, the best way to do this when it's time to file the NOTAM is just call them. I know that's the dumb way to do it, but it's just easier to do it that way the first time, or go ahead and watch this video right here. I really, really hope that they do this to where we don't need to file one. And it just is a really silly requirement in my eye. And I mentioned it in my modification, and hopefully they'll agree, because one of the arguments I used in my modification was, look, you're going to have how many of these waivers out here? And if everybody has to file a NOTAM every single time, if you're going to fly at a certain place all the time, a park, a field, you live out on a farm, whatever, somebody pulls up the NOTAM list or the tied to an airport, it's just going to be flooded with all these silly drone NOTAMs that aren't necessary, and it's going to create hazards for manned aviation. So hopefully they'll agree to that. And if it does, you guys will be the first ones to know. I'm not going to publish it at all. It'll go out to members only when that happens. So when you go to fill out your own application for this, which I suggest you do very quickly, you can try to say you don't want to file a NOTAM, but you may get rejected because we have not heard yet if they're going to go ahead and remove the NOTAM requirement. But go ahead, get an account for flight service. 800 WX brief is what it's also called, because you'll need that right away anyway. And it's just good to have a account there anyway, because this is the same people you can call if you're getting ready to fly somewhere and you heard somebody say that there's a VIP TFR, whatever. These are the folks where, hey, this is where I'm flying. This is what I'm doing. Are there any active TFRs or any upcoming TFRs? So it's just a good idea to have an account already with flight service. And then once you get your waiver, if you have to file a NOTAM, you'll need it anyway. It's a pain in the butt to use. It is not friendly at all, user friendly at all, but it's a requirement right now.
Hey, Vic, a couple
Yes, sir.
questions in the chat.
Oh, I'm not even watching the chat. Go for it. Oh, I can pull it up myself, dummy. Do they share the NOTAM with pre-flight briefings? If it's a NOTAM, I would assume they did. Or they do, I mean. But odds are, it's mostly going to be GA where we're going to be flying low. So I think it's up to the individual pilot. Those manned aviators on the call will be able to answer that more, because I am not a manned aviator. If my camera's in the air, I want my feet on the ground. I think if you check it yourself, you pull up all the NOTAMs from the airports you're flying out of, and it'll pop up. I know mine pop up. If you go to KBJC NOTAMs, both of mine will pop up.
Yeah, they won't share it with the pilots on a pre-flight briefing. That's your responsibility.
Our responsibility. Okay, thanks. Yeah, 333 NOTAMs. Yeah, 333. I'm not even going there. It's called 333 because it's only half evil. That was the joke at the time. Any more questions? Julio. What else?
I'm actually looking at SkyVector and see if I can pick up on your NOTAM.
They're kind of tiny. When I did mine around the house, I only did 1/10 of a mile because that was the lowest I could go, or the smallest I could go. Question. Yes, I had to upload. I said I uploaded my COA. Yeah, I have to upload my waiver to flight service. And I did it via email because I couldn't figure out a way to just do it. I couldn't say, okay, use this button to upload your copy, PDF of your waiver. And so I just emailed them because I was already emailing them anyway. I said, how do I do this? Oh, just send it to us. You guys, this is how long have we had upload buttons on websites? What, 30 years, maybe? At least 25 years, and you guys don't have one on yours? It's
Mhm.
silly. And you can go to your account. Let's go back to here. How do I get to, oh, I don't, oh shoot, I just don't log out, stupid. Oh, bummers. Okay, I'll log back in. Obviously, I don't use this site very often. So I can go to my account and here I am. Where do I upload a DROTM or my waiver? You asked me to upload it. Where do I do it? I can do all these different things. Now you'll know my phone number and my address. Not that that's not hard to find anyway. It's dumb. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's dumb. It's dumb. So there's back to that again. So questions about NOTAMs, which hopefully you'll never have to use. And again, to get the folks at Flight Service 800 what WX Brief are great people. The guy I talked to, the first guy I talked to, I said, "Hey, I need to do this." He goes, "What?" I goes, I don't do that here. Let me get you in touch with the person who does it. And this was the day before Christmas, so the 23rd. So they were more than happy to do their thing. He took half an hour with me, I think, maybe 25 minutes. And it doesn't cost anything. You're not paying them to do this for you. It's free. So hopefully no one has to fairly soon, but in the meantime, there you go. Any questions?
Oh, cool.
Here we go.
Show all DROTMs. Ha ha.
Uh-oh. Should I give you back everybody can show you my yeah, I do show up if you go to tfr.fa.gov.
TFR.
Because they show up under DROTMs. Or no,
where's your house located again? Lakewood is
Lakewood, 2100 South Carr Street. I show up under the KBJC airport NOTAMs. Or if you go to the map, I should show up on the map.
Yeah, I'm looking at the map. There's one near Boulder.
Not me. That's
No.
CU.
Okay. Are you farther down?
Uh-huh. I'm quite a bit further south. I'm like 40 miles south of CU.
Okay.
I know because I drove it 3 or 4 times a week when my son was up there in school.
Okay. All right. Well, no,
Anyway,
I can't find it.
if y'all are bored, go to Lakewood and find a little bitty 1/10 of a mile circle, and I live in the middle of that.
Cool. All right. Well, we hope that was helpful.
And I know y'all are going to have a ton of questions once you kind of try and do this. I know I want to give Jared the floor for a little bit because he has an announcement to make that is not DSP related directly, but sort of is. So does anybody have any questions or anything? If not, I'll give Jared the floor. Do you just want to be verbal or you want to go on screen, Jared?
I could be verbal. I just, well, I guess I could show you on my screen.
Okay,
It's
let me make
it's an
you
event.
host. Let me make you host. Your host
Okay.
number 3. Change host. You just have to give it back to me. You can't just hijack the whole thing.
I can't just hijack it. Dang. Okay. Let me real quick just pull up the website. Okay. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate it. It says host disabled screen sharing.
You're the host, aren't you?
Have I disabled it?
No, did I
You might
make
have
you
made
host?
my phone the host.
Oh,
joined on my
you're on
phone
Lone
and my
Star.
laptop.
I apologize. Yeah, I made you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry. I got to use my AirPods and I can't do those on my computer.
How old is your computer? Are you Jared? Or are you Jared Lone Star on your?
My computer is Jared Lone Star.
Okay, so I need to make that host. How do I make you host?
Maybe you already made me host. So maybe I have to.
Oh, you got to. Yeah, you got to do your other thing to make you're the host
okay.
now. We should have practiced this.
Yeah, where do you make the hosts?
You click on the 3 little dots.
Okay.
You hover over the person and click on the 3 little dots.
No problem.
And it says make host.
There we go. Got it.
Yay.
Okay. Now I can share my screen. Okay. Well, thanks. We wanted to let y'all know about the Texas Drone Workshop. This is a workshop that we've hosted for 4 years now. This will be our 4th annual. We're going to be doing it in Houston. Let me kind of make it a little smaller to be able to see. But it's a great workshop kind of hosted by AUVSI Lone Star chapter. And, as you know, AUVSI kind of runs alongside DSPA as an industry trade organization. So the goal of this is to serve as a bit of education to those who are looking to get into the industry and really start to dive in and get an understanding of, okay, what does it mean to be in this industry? What tips and tricks and, what does it really look like from industry professionals? And like I said, this is our 4th year doing it. It's kind of a unique format in that on Saturday, we host kind of classroom days where we go over, what mapping entails. We go over what cinematography entails and the tips and tricks that actual guys in Texas are using in those industries. We've got great depth here, and we're letting those guys give back in a way that can help educate folks. So this year we do have, I believe Vic and Kenji are going to be a part of this.
Yep.
We're super excited. We tried to get them for the past couple of years, but we want to bring the best to Texas and give them an audience here. So yeah, come join us. It's going to be a great weekend full of fun. Sunday is a hands-on day. That's where we take what we learned in the classroom and then we go out to a park and we actually get to practice it. And so we'll divvy that up. We'll have multiple class times. There'll be everything from a thermal class. John McBride's going to be a part of that. We've got asset inspection, utility inspection with Nate Ernst, who's coming in. I think Ken Dono is slated to be there. Billy Kyle teaching kind of the real estate photography. Vic with photography. Kenji is our cinematography guy this year. I'll be doing mapping. We've got some Pilot 101 with the Pilot Institute, and then also business pricing, kind of the business 101, the business side of it. You'll have opportunity in the classroom on Saturday to take 4 different little mini classes. And then on Sunday, you can switch back and forth. We're going to have 2 different time slots to get your hands on with either inspection or cinematography or mapping or whatever. So it's a huge event for us. It's really our only event that we do, that really brings the community together in a learning type environment, which is what we're excited to do and kind of educate people on. So our website, txdroneworkshop.com, talks about who's going to be there, what the day kind of looks like. You can register. It's $400, and that provides, we think, a ton of value over a 2-day event. So it's going to be in North Houston, located just outside of Houston in a small suburb. But man, we'd love to have you all down. We'll have some other events. We'll have, dinner that night and Saturday night and get together. It's a great networking opportunity. If you guys have any questions, I'm available. So
Thank you, Jared. Now give me back my webinar.
Sure. I'll give it back to you. I think I have to click you and say make host. There you go.
Yay. Am I host? I am a host.
I stopped sharing. There you go.
Yes. Awesome. Oh, John, in the chat, tell us what you got. Just pipe in real quick. Tell us what you got. This is something John and I've not been working on it with him. I've been his sounding board. I think it's probably a good way to put it. Would you say that's correct, John? Yes. So he got from the Department of Natural Resources. He's allowed to fly and look for down game. So that's huge. That's a great benefit for the community. Because you've got, you're technically in a lot of states not allowed to use your drone to assist in hunting. So there was some question whether or not bow hunters a lot of times will lose their game. They'll lose a blood trail. And it's not wasting a resource then if you can put a drone up while you still can, and then use thermal or visual to find it. And there you go. You've not wasted a carcass, or you've put an animal out of. Oh, great. It'll work in any state, John said, out of its misery. So that's a huge step. Thank you, John. That's going to be a huge step for anybody who wants to do that kind of stuff with drones in the hunting world. So awesome. So what other questions do we have, or do you have anybody have about pretty much anything at this point. Here, the Texas workshop, that's going to be a kick in the pants. It really is. I think it's going to be, it's for $400. I think that's the first time I heard the price. It's like, wow, that's not bad. So excited about that. And we're going to push that out as well. Crickets. Cheep, 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 cheep. Awesome.
Yeah.
I hope this was a benefit to y'all. Thank you so much for joining us and being part of the DSPA. We couldn't do what we do without you guys, or we could, but it'd come out of our own pockets. Kenji and I'd have to pay our own way to these kind of things. And that's what we use your generous donations and generous membership for. So we can get in front of the people on your behalf and they don't know what they're doing in DC and some of these smaller municipalities and states. And so it's we can't thank you enough, basically, is where I'm trying to go with this. Just excited to be able to be your voice where it counts.
Yeah. And Vic, I really appreciate it. You know, I mean, AUVSI is, national is a kind of a different world from us here locally.
Mm-hmm.
And we encourage everyone, get involved with your local chapter and make it what you want it to be. I know that we all have our time to give, and we should do of that well, so to help this industry forward. I know in Texas our legislation is ramping up for the next year, and so it's huge, and we rely on Vic and the DSPA Alliance for helping the insight that y'all are good at. We want to reach out to our industry and kind of bring industry involved, and it takes a concerted effort from everyone. So
absolutely. Yeah. And here in Denver, we're rebooting the whole Rocky Mountain AUVSI chapter, but it's worth getting involved in at the local chapter and join AVSI. They do a lot of good work, even though they did steal Scott from us. So Scott Stoffman was was our third wheel on the tricycle known as DSPA, and he's doing national work for AUVSI. So we're more than happy to pass him along to AUVSI, and we miss him.
Yeah,
we do. So
cool.
On that note,
AUVSI here, Expo here in Denver. You don't know where I'm pointing. Here in Denver in May 8th through the what is it? Look it up. Expo Exponential, AUVSI Exponential 2023. And Kenji and I are going to be on a panel together, and actually 2 panels together, aren't we? I just realized that. I'm moderating 2 different panels, one on Monday with Dawn Zoldai, and then we're doing a local dealing with local regulators panel on I think Thursday, if I remember correctly. So we're going to be there for that. And don't forget, if you are part of AUSI, or if you're not part of AUVSI, this was not supposed to turn into an AUVSI commercial, but it kind of is. They put out Drone Prepared, which is how to kind of help deal with the state legislature and trying to get each state, I think there's 18 currently, to have a state preemption when it comes to UAS regulations. Yeah, because I would rather have one state fight per state than a whole bunch of little fights per state.
Yeah, and Scott was instrumental in pulling that together.
Big time.
Yep.
Cool.
So on
that's
note,
droneprepared.org, right, Jared? We'll put a link. We'll put a link in the video when we post the video to the workshop. And do you guys have a list of local, somewhere with the local chapters?
Yeah, AUVSI.org.
Oh, AUVSI. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's one thing I'm pushing for as well. They call the local chapters different things. Like we're the Lone Star chapter, and the Oklahoma chapter is the USA chapter. And you're like, could you just call it the Oklahoma chapter? It'd be a whole lot easier to find.
Yeah, we're the Rocky Mountain
chapter. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what does that mean? From North Dakota all the way down to New Mexico? I mean,
exactly. I'm lobbying for that at the national level.
Awesome. Yeah. So just see if you can lobby. We can be the Colorado chapter. And we're the host chapter. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And thanks everybody, Mark, Larry, Jason. It's a huge thank you to everybody here and those who are going to watch it later who couldn't join us in person. And if you are watching it later, our email addresses are going to be below. And if you have questions about the waiver or anything we talked about here, reach out to Kenji and myself.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody.
Absolutely.
And
I'm going to quit recording, and we can go ahead and keep talking if we need to for a few more minutes if you want. So stopping recording now.